Hello and welcome to What is Magic, a series of videos that I've created having a discussion with some of the most interesting and some of the most creative minds in magic currently about what magic is. We talk a little bit more philosophically about magic, what magic means to our audiences, what magic means to us, and how we can be the best magicians possible. In this, the last episode in the series of my What is Magic series, or at least the first season of What is Magic, my guest needs no introduction. For someone who has spent the majority of his career being silent, he has a lot to say. One half of the worldwide success duo act Penn and one of the original bad boys of magic. I am talking about Teller. I hope that you enjoy this episode. This one has been very difficult to pin down. Teller is a very busy, very successful person, but we managed to do it. Listen to it, grab a pen, grab a notebook, take some notes, grab a drink, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any thoughts. Sit back, relax, and enjoy What is Magic with Teller. Teller, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for joining me. You were just saying before joining this chat that you love talking about this stuff, and I'm so excited we could finally pin down a date for this. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for being so patient.
I think when one has an opportunity in life such as this to talk to one of the all-time greats of their profession, I think that patience is certainly something that is required. You are a busy man, and you are currently doing your big tour of 50th anniversary, right?
50th anniversary, and I'm in Brisbane, Australia. We just finished in Sydney and Melbourne, and now we're here, and we're here until the 8th, and then we go back to the USA and try to figure out when the sun is rising in our brains.
Yes. Well, I hope that you get the time off you deserve. And on behalf of everyone, all of my viewers on my channel, we thank you for your time. The first question that I want to ask you, because this What is Magic series is more philosophical.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily about you or your career. It's more about your thoughts on magic. So the first question I want to ask you is, to you, in your own thoughts, what is magic?
Oh, it's a form of theater. Let's see. The expression. Aristotle described theater as the imitation of action in the form of action.
Yes.
Magic is the imitation of an impossible action in the form of action. It's a very complex thing because in a normal piece of theater, if two people pick up two dowel sticks and pretend to fight with like a sword, like a duel, you go right along with it. In magic, it has to look like they've actually got those swords and are actually doing that, and then the result of this has to be something spectacularly unnatural. So it's an extraordinarily difficult form of theater. It is a form of theater that is incredibly compelling to really any audience, even when badly performed. Magic is compelling. You know, the worst stylist who does a dove production and shows a silk empty and produces a dove gets a gasp from the audience. It's almost like a cheating form where all you have to be able to do is do a trick successfully, and you're considered a magician. That has its ups and downs.
This is so interesting because the first of all, the fact that you reference Aristotle, I'm sure that you will be able to correct me if I'm slightly off on this, but there's an old saying that says a magician is a person pretending to do magic.
I think it's somewhere around the Robert Houdin era. Someone described a magician as an actor playing the part of a magician.
There we go.
But see, there you're in very deep and ugly, potentially, waters, because what does that mean? This is not a Harry Potter play, so that's not enough. That doesn't tell us enough. In a Harry Potter play, we all look and we all go, "Oh, that's a scenic effect," or "That's make believe in some way." In magic, we have this wonderful discomfort, this profound discomfort, where we say, wait a minute, that can't be happening. That can't be happening, but it seems to be happening. So it's, what you see is colliding with what you know. And that's very interesting. It's incredibly engaging. And I'll tell you
Mm.
why it's so engaging. What's your first job with everything that you get to do in life? Well, you first have to figure out what's actually there, right? If you're about to step off the curb and you don't look to the left and right for traffic and a car hits you, you've made a mistake about that. If you go to a
Yes.
doctor whose sign says that he can cure cancer with little needle pricks, uh,
Yes.
you could very well die. So the most important decision that you ever make is what is really going on.
Hmm.
Magic is the playground for that particular chore, that particular task, that skill that you need to have. Magic is the playground where you go in there, and if you make a mistake, it's just sort of fun.
Hmm. I love this because what you're saying is it revolves around the idea of our reality, right? We're
Mhm.
always trying to identify what is our current reality. Are we safe? Are we happy? Is it warm outside? Am I hungry? Is that the reality, or is that an illusion that our mind has created? For example, sugar is a fantastic product at making our minds and our bodies feel like it's full up. But often when we have sugar, we are not actually full up, which again is some form of illusion. Of
Mhm.
course, that's very different to us performing magic for people and trying to get people to believe in the idea of the magic and the illusion that we're presenting to people is some sort of um, break in the illusion of life. But all of that, I think already 5 minutes in, and I think there's so much to absorb in that. And I would like to at some point over the next 50 minutes or so go back to performing even badly performed magic can be fantastic. I would like to loop back there because that is a super interesting point. Before we touch on that though, do you remember your first ever memory of magic? And that might not be a magician, it might be another form of magic, it might be a toy that you fell in love with as a child.
No,
What was your first memory?
I remember it very specifically. This is a story I've told many times. I'm surprised that
Mhm,
you hadn't run into it someplace. But when I was about 5, I got toxic myocarditis, which is next door to rheumatic fever, a very bad heart ailment. I was at death's door, and they took me to the hospital, and they gave me a transfusion. I remember the night that I was strapped into the bed in the dark, all alone, looking down at the stripe of white light under the hospital door. Or at least I believe I remember that. Who knows if I
mhm,
really do, or if that's a story that I've just told myself. But what I do know is that I came home and my diet was almost exclusively toast and tea, and we had a new TV. And of course, the TV in those days was this big. There was no
yes,
widescreen TV. There was a show on called Howdy Doody. Howdy Doody was a cowboy marionette, and he had other people who were on his show. Buffalo Bob, his best friend, and Princess Summerfall Winter Spring, and Clarabelle the Clown, who didn't talk but did
ah,
magic tricks. And Clarabelle did magic tricks, and that was very interesting to me as a little 5-year-old. And then one time they came on and they said for I think it was 50 cents and 3 Mars bars wrappers. If you sent that in an envelope, they would send you a Howdy Doody magic set. So
wow,
my parents very kindly did this, and of course, I mean, a 5-year-old can't handle anything. But when the magic set came, now what did I think the magic set was going to be? I mean, it would be like a pirate's chest. No, no, it was a flat envelope this big, about maybe
mhm,
6 by 8, and when you opened it up and took the pieces out, they were lightweight cardboard, almost like shirt cardboard, and
mhm,
you could tab them together to form little boxes and little slide things. There was a coin tray that you made by taking two circular pieces of cardboard and tabbing them together, and then you'd sneak pennies between there. You could put 3 pennies on top, and when you dumped them into your friend's hands, now there would be 10. You know,
mhm.
uh, And there was a box there, which I actually, if we were doing this at my house, I could show you this box. But there was a box there about this big, and it had a lid on top and a lid on the bottom. And you looked at it, and when you looked in, you saw there were, I think, 5 Mars bars. Then you take it and shake it up and say, all the hungry ghosts were coming for the Mars bars. You take the lid off, and now there are only 2. Oh, well, I couldn't get enough of this Howdy Doody magic set. I
Mhm.
sat in the storeroom of my parents' house, which had a very high, dusty, warm window where yellowing sunlight would shine in on me in the afternoon. And I would just work this stuff over and over again because it was the first time in my life that I realized that what you see could be different from what you
Yes.
know. And it was very striking. And it was one of those moments, there's a great speech which I don't have at my fingertips
Mhm.
in Equus. In Equus, do you know the speech in Equus?
I
You
don't.
know, look it up. Look up the. I might be able to find it for you, but it's a speech in which the psychiatrist is trying to diagnose why the kid is obsessed with horses. And he
Right.
talks about how when you're a certain age, moments snap together like magnets, and form a chain of shackles that you can never get rid of. Well, that's what
Mhm.
happened to me.
That
Uh,
is so beautiful because
oh, wait,
so many.
wait.
Go on. Go
There's a PS. PS.
on.
Uh, on my 60th birthday, I got a lot of presents from my friend Gene. And Gene, gave me some socks and gave me some magic books, and then handed me something. It was like a shirt box. And I opened the shirt box and I just burst into tears. He had gone on eBay and found a seller who was selling, quote, the same kind of magic set that got Teller started in magic.
Mhm. And
and
was it the same set?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
It
wow.
was it was absolute. So I was seeing images I hadn't seen for 55 years.
Mhm. That was going to be my next question. Do you have the original set from when you were a child of the
No, I wore that into dust. Yeah,
It was well used, well loved. But
it was.
this is a story that many magicians start with, the magic set of their
Mhm.
time. And did you say it was Howdy Doody, the
Howdy
set?
doody, howdy
Howdy
doody. This was
uh,
this was cheesier than most magic sets. I mean, much cheesier, but very cleverly done.
yeah.
The clever ways the things were tabbed together, so you really felt like you were making these props. It was quite
Mm.
wonderful.
That's part of the unique aspect of magic in comparison to lots of other professions as well, though, isn't it? Because with magic and being a magician, whether you are a hobbyist or a working magician or a full-time professional, you're so involved with the process of making props and creating props. And I'm not sure that many other professions have this. In other professions, you might buy technology and you might buy equipment, but then that equipment does it. For printers, for example, you buy the paper, you buy the stock, you have designers that design it, and then it gets printed. The machine does it. But in magic, there's so much of this aspect of you receive the materials and then you have to build it. And then magicians make their own versions of building it, just like the Howdy Doody set where they send you the bits of cardboard, the templates, and then you're the one who has to create it.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, if you're a kid violinist, you probably don't build your own violin,
Exactly.
right? Or a baseball player, you buy the bat and you buy the ball. You don't have that construction end of it. That's true.
So I wonder if this is one of the things that leads magicians into a lifelong love of magic because it is such an involved process. It's they always say in Hollywood that the greats in Hollywood have to be what's it old fashioned saying of the triple threat, a singer, dancer, and an actor. And then with magician, you have to be so many more things. You have to be an engineer, you have to be a scientist, you have to there's so many more elements and aspects to it. So I love the Howdy Doody story, and I hadn't heard of it before. So I'm so
Really?
glad that
Oh, good.
uh, and that brings me on to because the Howdy Doody story is where you got started in magic. But I want to ask you now with especially at this time when you're doing the big 50th anniversary tour. What do you think about magic now? We're in 2025. Is magic, because it's much cooler than it was 50 years ago.
I believe that's true.
It's much more accessible now as well. Um, it's very different. There are hardly anyone performing in a Tales now with producing doves, like Lance Burton made very famous and fantastic act, his dove act, and many other magicians as well. But what do you think of magic at the current time? Is it healthy? Is it fun? Is it
I
growing?
think it's marvelous. I think it's marvelous. I mean, as a front row spectator on Fool Us, our television show Fool Us, I get to see stuff that just absolutely thrills me. Profoundly original stuff showing up, or stuff that is within the vocabulary of say card tricks, but is done by somebody like Danny De Ortiz. You
Mm.
know, he does stuff there that is a virtuoso on a Stradivarius, and it's just a pack of cards and a guy with a bag on his head. So I like the variety too. I also like the fact that there are more, particularly that there are more women and people of color getting into
Mm.
magic. It was an old white man's game for a really long time.
Yes.
Beautiful work. I mean, beautiful work, but it was really, you were always looking at something that looked kind of the same.
Hmm.
Do you know that I learned Johnny Thompson's dub act? Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, I was I was shooting a zombie movie. He said, I was shooting a zombie movie in a trailer, and Johnny and Pam volunteered to be in the cast. They just wanted to be in the cast. And I said, well, you should do your act, and you should do your act for zombies, because you've been now cast out from your routine gig in Las Vegas, and now you need an audience. So they would capture zombies and strap them to chairs just so they could have an audience to do the wonderful Thompsonian Company act, which is it is my favorite. I think it's maybe just my favorite stage act of all time.
Hmm.
Because of the combination of exquisite technique in magic with unbelievably good, old-fashioned but hugely convincing technique in acting.
Hmm.
They were both extremely well trained actors in New York trained actors. So I'll tell you this little story about the principle of the principal element of the act is that Johnny
Hmm.
Thompson is a pompous Polish magician trying to do the most elegant possible dove act, and his wife is a gum chewing American over the hill showgirl who has had enough of it.
Right.
And here's a story that I heard about them when they were playing one place. I'll get to the point eventually, but
Mm.
they were in a casino in Las Vegas, and one of their friends went backstage and heard Johnny going, "That bitch. She just every night she's such a she never shows up on time. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't fire her. She's my wife." Meanwhile, they walked over and they heard outside Pam's dressing room, "Oh, that bastard! He's so self-important. What does he think? I'm nothing on stage." And the fellow talked to the stage manager and said, "Is everything all right?" He said, "Yeah, they're just getting into character." um, so now back to the zombie trailer.
Yes.
I look at them, and Penn and I for a long time had the idea that it would be interesting to take some classical piece of magic, some legendary magic act from the past, and learn that act, um, and learn to do that act and make it part of our show. And I'm
Mm.
going to start watching this and I'm saying, wait a minute, this is one of those acts, and both of these people are alive. They're about to retire, and they're here, and I bet they would teach us.
Mhm.
So we spent 8 months maybe working constantly with Johnny. Our woman on our show named Georgie Bernasek, who's a showgirl, a former retired showgirl from Jubilee,
Mhm.
worked with Pam, and we learned this act, and it is the hardest thing I ever tried to learn. just learning the goddamn dove productions. You know how people produce doves where they're going, here's the silk, like that.
Hmm.
Well, here's Johnny's version of that. I'll push myself back a little bit. Johnny's version of that is, here's the silk, and there's the dove.
Yes.
Johnny taught Lance. Johnny
Right.
taught Lance. Johnny was Lance's teacher.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know where that ends up, except to say this: learning some of those things is very worthwhile. We learned the egg bag from Johnny as well, and
Okay.
we just learned piece by piece by piece. Here's a piece of advice I would give to a magician who
Mm.
is learning a piece. Don't pay any attention to what they say in the magic books. Magic books say you learn the principle of it, learn to do the trick, but do your own words. Don't use my words. Here are my words, but don't use my words because they won't fit you. That. That's not the case. If those words are as good as the words that Johnny Thompson used in the egg bag, learn those words, and when those words turn out to be maybe not quite a perfect fit on you, make minor adjustments because that's
Mhm.
poetry. You're really not going to do better than tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. You don't say to an actor playing Macbeth, come up with something that sounds a little depressed.
This is really interesting you say this because one of the other conversations in this What is Magic series was with FISM winner Morten Christensen. And he said he doesn't understand why in the books, in the instructions, in whatever you're learning your magic trick from, he says that he doesn't understand why some instructions say, and now you do this, and now you do this, and you say this. He just says, why don't magicians teach in a way where they teach the principle and they allow you to take that and create your own story, create something that means something to you so that you can connect to your audience in a way that other magicians can't. And it becomes such, rather than, of course, iteration is really important. If you don't have anything to say to the beginning, you have to start with something. And that might mean taking the from the instructions, but then over time you have to make it about you and about your ideas. Otherwise, you're not offering anything more to the trick
Except,
itself.
except, what about that actor who says tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the
Mhm.
last syllable of recorded time? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. I don't
Mhm.
care about that actor's real character. I care about Macbeth. You know, if you are a writer who is better than Johnny Thompson writing for the Egg Bag,
Mhm.
good luck. But if considering that Johnny Thompson writing for the Egg Bag was Max Malini, then Charlie Miller, then Johnny Thompson, there is a level of perfection that is sometimes in words that that you can learn from. That you can,
Yes.
yes, maybe you do make some variations, but the first thing that you should do is not do what Morton says.
Okay.
What
Interesting.
I'm saying is the absolute opposite. I love Morton. I think he's
Yes,
marvelous. He's
he is.
not only he's a as a human being, he's as marvelous as he is as a performer. He's
I agree.
brilliant. But I do think that someone else doing the exact moves that Morton is doing with his permission, of course, if he
Mhm.
published it, let's say, and doing it
Yes.
with the words that he published it, and that he published, could learn more by you doing exactly what he says, than what he said, and saying exactly what he says, than you can through any amount of bumbling around on your own and saying, "Here
Mhm.
I am, I'm 17 years old. What do I have? What do I know about life? What do I know about comedy?"
Yes. So this brings us back to the first question that started this line of thinking was what do you think about magic in the current day? So I would like to wrap that up because we've spoken about some of the greats in magic and how it took you 8 months to learn that routine. And how do you remember how long that dove routine is?
Oh, no, it's about 11. I think I probably underestimated. I
Right.
don't think I have a record. I think it was probably closer to a year and a half,
Mhm.
if I remember right. But um, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
It was about how long it took you because
Yeah.
it took you about a year and a half of
Yeah.
of dedication and rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal for how long of the act? For 8 minute
Oh,
8 minute
for
type act?
yeah, it might be 8, it might have been 8, 9 minutes, something like that. Yeah.
I think that roughly, from somewhere from 8 to 10 minutes, something like that, which is not a very long amount of time in the grand scheme of the world. So 1.5 years of intense rehearsals and practicing just to be able to perform something for 8 minutes, which I think goes to show the dedication, as we were saying at the beginning, the dedication that's required to devote yourself to becoming a fantastic magician.
It's
But I know. Go on, go on.
magic is full of so many counterintuitive things
Mm,
that it makes it, I know it may be similar in some regards to, let's say, becoming a great violinist, but if you want any kind of breadth of repertoire, you don't
mm,
build a new violin every time you play a new tune. And with
yeah,
magic, you very often have to build a new violin for each tune. So, magic is very work intensive. And also,
mm,
people believe that you're really making sounds on the violin, and you
yes,
are. In magic, you have to make them believe that you're making sounds on the violin while you're not. So
yeah.
it's a double chore.
I am conscious of time, and I would love to talk more about that and construction of magic and the work that goes into things like this. But
Huh?
I think that talks about a little bit about magic from the past, from the great acts, and then coming into magic in the current day, which you say really excites you. You love the idea that there's so many new magicians coming in, females coming into the space, all different kinds of cultures. Magic is much more accessible now, and that is just becoming a smelting pot for talent to thrive, which
Yeah,
surely is healthy. It can only be healthy for magic.
and it's there are some people who complain about the explanations of magic tricks that are on the
Mm.
internet. I use them. I routinely go on and say, I wonder if there's anybody who's doing this. And then I check and I look and I go, oh, that's a good start on something. I think the idea that a kid, let's say it's a child,
Yes.
could go on the internet and learn a magic trick is
Mhm.
tremendous. I think that's tremendous. It's also really important. It's really important for people to learn from each other in a room. That's
Mm.
also tremendously helpful. Do you know the Magic School of Confidence in Melbourne?
I don't. I know the Magic Camp in America and then Breathe Magic in the UK, but I'm not aware of the one in Australia.
I just went there. The reason it's in my mind is because I went there the night before last,
Yes.
and Anthony Demasi is this wonderful guy, totally devoted to magic, who has generations now of professional magicians who
Mm.
started off as kids
Amazing.
with him, and I think that's very important too because you can get technical stuff off the internet, and you can get there's all sorts of stuff you can get off the internet. But there's something
Mm.
about being with somebody who's just a good person teaching you that's tremendously nice.
Oh, definitely. I have so many memories, as I'm sure you do, of when I was a child learning magic and having these older figures in my life who were so kind and so patient with me and really showed me how to perform magic and were not afraid to tell me if I was being arrogant or if I was doing something a little bit wrong. But uh, can I? Do you mind if I say how we met? Because
Oh,
you
no, no,
say
go ahead.
about that. So you say that you sometimes look at YouTube videos, or you if you see a magic trick, you'll search it on the internet and see if there's something to learn from that. Of course, you in your duo act with Penn, you were the original bad boys of magic, and I think people are going to find that really interesting. And I just this it's such a weird series of events, and just like magic, life is full of twists and turns. And then, of course, 2 years ago now, or last year, I think it was. I know 2 years ago, I was banned from the magic circle, and
Whoa, sorry.
yeah, and you kindly invited me into the outer magic circle.
Well, the Magic Circle still has not invited us. The Magic Circle
Yes,
won't
I'm aware.
won't won't have Penn and Teller because we do things like we say, uh, the card is palmed,
Mm,
and and that's a horrible thing to give away, because nobody knows the idea that you might hide something in your hand. Nope.
Mhm. Especially when they can go onto the internet and search for such simple principles. But I think that my point here was that I am so incredibly grateful and appreciative because I feel like I'm in good company. Last year, the UK press labeled me as bad boy of magic and the bad boy illusionist and things like that that's been banned from the magic circle. And I feel like I'm in such good company with you and Penn. I feel like you two paved the way, and not to say that I am moving on from that, but to say that um, I am somehow you have contributed to me being somewhat of a bad boy. I just love it, and I think it's such an interesting series of events.
I'm so proud to have helped to corrupt the youth.
And hopefully, if I ever get the opportunity to be even a small amount as successful as you are, I can do the same and pass on that kind of teaching and help magic grow and move forward. It's um, old arbitrary ways of thinking so that it can become an even greater form and welcoming form. I had this was an interesting discussion. I had a discussion with someone, and he's retired and very lovely man, and he came into magic later in life in his 40s, unlike most people who come into magic younger. And we were talking about this, about the magic circle and magic clubs, how secrecy of magic keeps people out. It closes the door on people. But I believe that magic should be more inclusive. We should be finding ways to open the door for people and bring people into it and help people understand magic and love magic, because one of the things with magic is that people want to catch you out, and people want and it becomes this fight of the magician versus the audience. And in my opinion, it shouldn't be like that. It should be the magician and the audience going on a journey together. And the magician tries to create this experience where it's not a conflict. It's not I'm smarter than you. It's not anything like that. It's we are moving together and I'm sharing something with you that you will hopefully love.
Well, good luck with that. I, I, there's certainly you certainly want to bring the audience with you. That's for sure. But the idea that the audience is not going to try to catch you out is, I think, not realistic, because
Okay.
magic is not a comfortable form. Magic is
Yes.
this horrible moment where you go, "That's wrong. That's wrong. There's something wrong with me. I haven't got that. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I wouldn't be sitting at the edge of the seat at a concert. I'd be nice and relaxed. But
Yes.
here, there's something wrong." And you just there's often a kind of playful balance that you can hit of those two
Mm,
things. When it gets too, to my mind, when it gets too, oh, I'm just inviting you along on our little magical journey,
mhm.
it kind of loses its claws, because
Okay.
magic has an edge to it. It's
Mhm.
there's a bite to it, and if it doesn't have a bite, it feels to me like we're not taking advantage of one of the major things of it, which is that there we can't forget that there is an element of puzzle, deep
Mm,
puzzle, that is very uncomfortable, that we feel driven to resolve. And as long as that deep puzzle is there, when we go home at night, we take that puzzle with us, and that puzzle
yes.
stays alive because that puzzle is unresolved. So I think becoming too utterly comfortable might
Mm.
not be that good an idea.
And I think I am a wise enough person at 37 to not say that I am right, and I think that the having that edge, because of course as magicians we're breaking people's patterns of logic and we're breaking their behaviors, and that, as you say, puts some people in this edgy state where, hang on a second, that wasn't supposed to happen. And all of the education, let's say someone has gone through college and university and high and PhD and professorship and all of the and then some measly magician who they've paid £45 to go to see and enjoy suddenly breaks 20 years of education where they've
Yeah.
been told if A happens, B is a result of A happening, and then suddenly we break that logic.
And it's such a joyful tribute to art. Do you know that art can do this to you? That a little card trick can. I just read a biography of Elon Musk, and it describes him going to a magic show. I'm seeing a magician at a party and loving it out of his mind. This extremely logical, somewhat maniacal guy, but a brilliant inventor, and there are questionable elements, but still, um, just being driven crazy by that. And I'll tell you another beautiful story. This is I was directing The Tempest in America. I've done 5 versions of it all around the country here, and I'm hoping to bring it to England sometime soon. But we were working at the Rio, the theater that I work at in Las Vegas, and we were trying to make. There's a moment when Ariel suddenly appears as if he's a wolf and scares everybody away. And we just couldn't get it to work. We built this wonderful prop for having it happen, and it just didn't look good. It didn't look the way it was supposed to look in my mind. And the actors were all like, okay, we'll try it this way now again. And I said, okay, take 5. And I'm thinking, I'll take 5, but then I'll just send everybody home. So I walked down the hall away from our stage. Johnny Thompson was working with everybody there too. And I went down the hall, and at the end of 5 minutes, I walked back up the hall towards the stage. And so I was walking towards the stage. I heard screams, serious screams. And I opened the door to the stage, and Johnny was doing card tricks for people at the front edge of the stage, and people were screaming with absolute delight with just a pack of cards. And they were all completely revived and brought back into the present the way magic has a way of doing. And we went on and we continued to work on the scene and solve the problem.
Wonderful.
That is what magic can do for people. And that's not a comfortable art form. That is an art form that makes you scream.
It's really interesting you say that, because last year in 2024, I rebranded from professional magician to director of innovation and magic, because part of my work as a magician is in the field of neuroscience and figuring out how magic can be used as a means of therapy, or it can be used as a means of rehabilitation for people who perhaps have committed crimes, and it gives them a tool to help them to engage and reintroduce them into society, and all these kinds of things, and using it in business scenarios where not many people go into work on Monday morning skipping jolly, I'm so happy the weekend's over and I'm in work this morning. That isn't a reality for most people. So doing workshops in the morning for businesses where the boss says, oh, hey, we're going to split the office into U5, or however many groups it is. And they come into an office space and they receive this little magic show that's structured with fire and with things that excite them. And then they go back to their desks happier, more productive, more grateful for being in a fun environment and thanking their boss. That was such a cool Monday morning. So it's really interesting that you say that Johnny was having this reaction where everyone went back to work revived, and the synapses in their brains were firing and they were re-energized, because that is exactly what magic does. And I think that not enough people in the world, especially, high business people, directors, founders, CEOs, in my experience anyway, they can poo-poo the idea of magic. They think it's just entertainment, but it can be so much more. Yes.
They think it's for children. When Penn and I went to New York the first time in our off-Broadway run, the producer said, if you say the word magic to the press, people will send in their children in station wagons for matinees, and no first string reviewer will ever take you seriously. So we referred to magic as the M word. Because it's really magic is at its best when it just comes as a complete surprise. When someone comes out and says, I'm going to mystify you now, very different from somebody just coming out and mystifying you.
I quite agree. But with this in mind, talking about the effects of magic and how magic can create different environments, How do you see magic going in the future? We've spoken about the past from your childhood. We've spoken about the current day as exciting. Do you see magic? Do you see, we see more VR and augmented reality? Do you see magic going into that, where you put a headset on and you experience the Penn and Teller 60th anniversary through a VR, or do you see it staying as an analog experience with people, or how?
Yeah,
What do you envision, or what do you hope for magic into the future?
I hope that something happens in magic that I can't predict. I mean,
Ah,
that's what I would really hope for. I
yes.
do believe there will always be a place for magic in what I would call theatrical circumstances, which is live
Mhm.
performance, whether it's close up, whether it's parlor, whether it's stage. It's magic does seem to succeed somewhat on TV, but it always succeeds when you're seeing it through someone else's eyes. I think that we're among the first. We're not the first, but we're among the first who really realized that when you're doing magic on TV, you're not doing it for the you should not appear to be doing it for the camera. You should be
Mhm.
appear to be doing it for someone, a talk show host, or whoever you're doing it for, because then it acquires a level of reality that it doesn't when it's just facing the camera. Then it's just like any TikTok video that you know is faked.
Yes.
You need to have a real sense of the environment that it's going on. I think it will survive perfectly well the way it's survived all these years. People will be doing the cups and balls in 500 years if certain people don't get their way.
Well, I think this as well because we with talking about people like Elon Musk and various other very talented, somewhat questionable, but also very genius-like people about creating robots that will eventually help us in our home and assist us. And
Yeah,
I've always said this. I've always said that no matter how advanced technology gets, with robotics, with anything like that, I don't think any AI, any robot will ever be able to replicate the feeling that you get when you're sat with another human being experiencing a magic trick.
because there's nothing between you and the event.
Mhm.
You look at the screen is between you and the event. But when you're here and and this roll of tape is right here, and this roll of tape comes to life and squiggles across the room, which is I'll show you that trick later. Uh,
Okay.
the shock is powerful. The discomfort,
Yes.
the the joyful discomfort. There's joyful discomfort in jokes too. Where you there's that little squirm of discomfort that makes you laugh, and there's the same thing with magic.
Mm.
Have I ever talked to you about cause and effect?
No, I don't believe so.
I'll tell you, I have a couple of interesting definitions that you might like. Um,
Mhm.
One is magic depicts the relationship between a cause and an effect that have no connection in reality, but
Mhm.
that are connected poetically. Uh, and this is a thing that people could benefit very much from knowing. If you have, um, so imagine I have a little sponge ball here, and I
Mhm.
close my hand and I open my hand and it's gone. That's okay, but it doesn't. I'm just picking up random props, but it doesn't have the same effect as if I have a little sponge ball here in my hand, and then I come over and I jab it with this. Oh, geez! Oh, and now it's gone because now there's a cause, right? There's a
Yes.
cause to that thing, and I think that's a very that if you are in a situation where something that you're doing is not firing, I think it pays to think about something that is not a stupid cause. I mean,
Mhm.
not a cause as stupid as this, but 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 a cause that you really feel could connect, that you could really, I mean, if I were doing a kids show and I had a breakaway wand, right? I have a breakaway wand ready to, and I put the thing in here, and I pick up the
Mhm.
breakaway wand, and I touch this, and the breakaway wand breaks away, and now this is gone. All of a sudden, there's a little bit of poetry there, even though it's very
Mhm.
crass. It's very very sort of
Yes.
stupid. Just always look for the cause, And of course, from my own personal repertoire, my shadow trick
Yeah.
is the sort of the classic example of that, because you cut the shadow and the
Hmm.
real thing dies. You cut the shadow, the real thing dies. Then you cut the real thing and the shadow bleeds.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's all just cause and effect thinking. That's all just saying, yes, all that is it's a flower falling apart. Means nothing. But add the
Hmm.
cause, and now it's got some poetry to it.
I think this loops us back to at the beginning. I said I would like to at some point come back to performing magic badly. That even when magic isn't at its best, it still has this often profound effect or very emotive response within people. So I wonder for anyone. I don't want to say that people are not very good magicians, but we are all on our journey as humans, just as we are as magicians. And the goal is to always improve in what we're doing. And like you say, add some poetry to it and add some cause and effect to it and build and build and build. The old saying is Rome wasn't built in a day. So I think talking about this, where your effect of the rose shadow is a classic in magic. It's one that's loved by probably millions of people at this point. So for anyone who feels like their magic isn't there, that they're performing badly, or that people are telling them they're performing badly, is there anything you could say to people or anything that you would like to share with people that might help them improve their magic in any
Keep
meaningful way?
Yeah, keep doing it is what I would say. I mean,
Mm.
if it's bad 5 times in a row, do it 10 times in a row, and you'll learn more about it. Just keep or throw that particular thing out until you're ready for it. But the thing is that you don't, as a performer, you don't know who you are
Mm.
until you've done a million zillion shows.
Yes.
I believe I've seen some video of me doing performances when I was 30, and every bit of comedy that I attempted was horrible. Just I mean, just horrible, just embarrassing and cutesy and repulsive. Um, but I just kept at it until doing it enough times, I began to realize it's not easy to perform. It's just not, because you have your feelings, they
Mm.
have their feelings. You have to listen to. It's a conversation in a certain sense. There's just a lot to learn. So the more you perform, the better off you're going to be. I mean, if you had a specific example and we were
Mhm.
working together on it, maybe I could help. But
Yes.
in general terms, no.
I think that's great though. I think as a single piece of advice for anyone who feels like they are not where they would like to be as a magician, as a performer, as any however they might consider themselves as a person who's a practitioner of magic, I think that just keep trying. Don't give up because of course there's a picture that goes around on the internet every week, and it's at the top you have a person digging in the mine with a pickaxe, and they give up and they put their axe down, and then the person below them is they just keep going, and there's a big diamond at the end of each mine shaft,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
one who gives up never gets the diamond, and the one who keeps going gets the diamond.
Or not. Sometimes you don't. Uh, it's really true. Sometimes when Penn and I were doing um, Off the Deep End, which was a television special that we originally pitched as entirely underwater.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't recommend, if you get the idea that you think you might have fun to do magic underwater, like you want to do a sawing a woman in half underwater and have a lot of blood flow out of oh, don't do it. Don't do it. The sea is cruel. But we had one idea of shooting a fire hose from one side to the other side of a piece of lawn, and having
Mhm.
me, have me walk on the water. And we worked out a way to do it that was pretty good. And we got to the Bahamas where we were shooting the rest of the show, and we ran out of time to shoot that. So we decided we were going to put that on our stage at the Rio. Well,
Mhm.
let me tell you, when you have a wood, you, you don't want to cover the entire front row with water, right?
Mhm.
So you have to put a piece of plexi in front of that, which makes the thing look like crap. and then you don't want water to spill on your sprung oak stage. So we spent, what was it? It was like 4 years and $60,000 on it. And then finally Penn said, I just don't think this is ever going to work. Let's stop spending time and money on it. And we stopped. So you can get all the way down to the bottom of that shaft and find that there's nothing but a mole down there.
I guess this is just as important then. That it's important to know when to give up as well as when to try to continue and persevere.
Yeah, yes, you do need to eventually acquire a talent for that. But I will say, I agree with you. Fundamentally, I agree with you that you're never going to get there. There may not be a diamond there, but you will not know it unless you dig all the way and look around for it. And if the diamond is not there, then you go another way. But the whole key to it is you've got to love the process so much that you're willing to spend all that time. Not because of the goal. It's not the goal. It's the act of trying to learn to shoot a fucking dove into a handkerchief with my fourth finger. Boom. Johnny used to stand next to me and say, "Hey, just do this." I said, "Johnny, take the word 'just' out of your mouth. I never want to hear the word 'just' again." I have a little tidbit for you that you might like.
Yes.
This is my definition of misdirection. Misdirection is the story you get the audience to tell itself. If you muse on that for a while, it will be very useful. It's a very useful thing because you are getting the audience. You're not telling them the story, right? You're putting out the clues for the audience to tell that story to themselves. It's very interesting. Every time I apply it, I find it a useful saw.
Well, this is also interesting that I am going to wrap it up very shortly because I don't want to take too much of your time, and I know that you need to rest as well. But we started by you talking about Aristotle, and there is a very old saying of less is more, and you should always try to communicate. I don't know if it's always, but I think it's something like perfection is less, and simplicity is the ultimate form of perfection. So I think that when you don't have to tell your audience, then they receive the information in the way that they should be receiving it and interpreting it. And like you say, when the misdirection is unspoken, and this idea of you do not explicitly explain your magic to people, gives you much more power as an entertainer and a magician and a curator of this sharp, on the edge of your seat experience that we're talking about.
Yeah, and sometimes that's not the right way. You know what I mean? Yeah, yes, that is the right way. That is absolutely the right way. And then there are those tricks in which you say, "Here's what I'm going to do, and you're not going to catch me. And isn't this fun?" Eddie Fector used to do a bunch of those. Johnny Thompson had his $100 wallet trick thing. It was absolutely impenetrable. He just told you what he was going to. We did a rabbit out of a hat, where we said in all of our career we've never actually seen a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat. So that's what we're going to do. But we have to borrow a hat. Nobody's carrying a hat. So here, take this hat. And when we need it, we'll put it on your head. When we need it, we're going to borrow it back. Okay. And then we needed to do all sorts of things, like producing a kicker and producing a rabbit flag, and all sorts of stuff. And then in the end, we produced a rabbit, and then it was a real rabbit, and with a person this far away from it, and it was pretty good. So yeah, there's just magic is fraught with wonderful different ways to come at things, to come at ideas. And you know how when a comedian does a setup, and then does the punchline, the joke is not the punchline. The joke is between the setup and the punchline. Yes. Magic is that place. Magic is in that place between the setup and the punchline where it just sort of springs out at you and you laugh or you scream or you do whatever you do.
Yes. I think this is the perfect point to wrap this discussion or this conversation up with, because I don't know if you will 100% agree with this, but one of the things that I always tell people, particularly when I'm talking to other magicians, is that magicians often make the mistake of giving their audience what they want. And you can do that, but before you do that, you have to give the audience what they want. And unless you give what they want, they're not going to be receptive to when you try to give them what they want. So I wonder if you will, to tie this conversation up, I wonder if you will have any thoughts on that.
I got confused with your pronouns.
So you may have a magic trick, and you may have a concept of a magic trick, and you say, I want to perform this magic trick at my stage show in Rio, in the Rio resort. And to get the audience on board with that idea, because this is a concept that excites you, that you want to share with people, you think it's an amazing idea, you've created, you've spent that $60,000 creating, and it just doesn't really land. And I know that Darren Brown said this. He in his Broadway show a couple of years ago, he said that he did this one trick and it didn't work 3 times, 3 shows in a row, and he learned from the mistakes, and he kept going, and then he never made that mistake again. So I always say that you have to show your audience a magic trick that you want to share with them, or to get them to do something that you want them to do, to follow an action. You have to give them what they want. So an example of this is the donkey won't walk unless you put the carrot in front of it. You know what I mean?
I do. I never think like that. But
that was it. I was just interested to see whether
it doesn't ring any bells with me, because they have come in order to see the ideas that excite me.
Yes.
They've come to see the ideas that excite me. Otherwise, they could go home.
True, but many magicians don't have the reputation, and they're hired to go to an event. People don't go to see them, so they have a selection of magic tricks. And if you want to get someone, because lots of people, especially at cocktail receptions, at corporate events, things like this, because like you say, magic is an illogical process, and sometimes people want to prove you wrong. It's a little bit of a conflict. So to get an audience on board with you, you have to give them a little something first.
We have an example.
Okay, so I want someone. I'm performing for a group of 3 people at a drinks reception. It's a corporate event. Everyone's a high flyer. They're all educated and successful. And I'm performing a card trick. And one of the gentlemen says, I don't like card tricks, but I really want to share this card trick with them because it's a card trick that's to do with her name. And I've planned this, and and I think they're going to love it. At that point, I think I need to reevaluate and say, maybe I will do this card trick for this woman where I spell her name out or something like this. But before that, I need to give him, because the audience is telling me they don't want a card trick. So do I force that on them? Or do I give him what he wants? And do I say, I hate card tricks too, but would you allow me to share this one with you? Or, well, what would you like to see? Let me show you something else and then if I give you that, will you allow me to do and will you enjoy it?
I see.
This is the balance that I'm talking about, giving our audience something to get them on our side, to enjoy our magic the best as they possibly can.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to do that which helps you make a connection with the audience. I mean, you're not talking about anything other than tact. I mean,
no, not really. Exactly the same thing.
You're really saying, I mean, you could in that circumstance, you could probably say, yes, as you said, I hate card tricks too, but this uses cards, but it isn't really a card trick. Let me show you what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's just fencing with the way audience members behave, and we do that all the time. Yeah. All the time. Sometimes we throw them back like fish.
This is interesting.
Back in the day when we were doing the bullet catch, And
Yes.
suddenly the woman grabbed the gun and, closed it
Oh
up
my
and aimed
gosh.
it at Penn. He ushered her gently back into the audience.
I,
When
yes.
I, at one point in the ancient past, when I was doing the needle trick, and the guy came to work with me on the needle trick, came up from the audience, came to the top of the steps and walked across the stage on his knees. I shook his hand, gave him a big round of applause, and threw him back. You know?
Yes. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes we have to use our tact. We have to not just go along with things as a magician because we're there as the magician. We sometimes have to change course and divert. And
Yeah.
I think that the reason, another reason why I wanted to end on this point and this idea is the fact that I hope that this conversation has provided value to the magicians who watch it and the non-magicians who watch it. And I hope that it's been inspiring. I hope that it's offered some interesting stories. I've certainly heard some fascinating stories that I have never heard before. So with that in mind, I hope that we have given people what what they wanted and they're happy. And I would like to say thank you so much for your time because we've I've been chasing you and chasing you and chasing you while you've been working, and you've kindly made time. And we've rescheduled this so many times, and I'm glad that we were finally able to do it.
Thank you. I enjoyed this immensely. You are a very good interviewer.
Thank
you have
you.
very good good and deep knowledge of magic, and I enjoyed talking with you. So next time we talk, it might not be on video; it might just be a
Mm.
conversation.
Perfect. Let me know when you're in London.